Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video we're taking a look at a brand new legendary Pokemon in the world of Pokemon Go, Dawnwing's Necrozma. These battles were submitted to the channel by a member of the community, so many thanks for the battle submission. I tried to pronounce his name and I was worried that I was messing it up, so I will have his name listed on the move graphic. Dawnwing's Necrozma is going to be a Ghost Psychic type Pokemon with the moveset of Shadow Claw, Dark Pulse, and the new Legacy move Moongeist Beam. Dawnwing's Necrozma should be instant meta in the Open Master League, not quite having the impact of Palkia Origin, but being very, very strong. Hopping into the first match, hitting Zygarde into Mewtwo, and this is a team to be feared. Oh my goodness. The infamous Zygarde Solgaleo core. Zygarde, massively, massively bulky. Solgaleo, so deadly with the Fire Spin plus Psychic Fang spam. And in the back, the absolute menace when shields are down, Dawnwing's Necrozma. Its new move, Moongeist Beam, is a 65 energy move that has over 2 damage per energy with no drawbacks. 135 base power for 65 energy. So if shields are down, Dawnwing's Necrozma is going to inflict some seriously massive damage. Opponent is going to be returning fire with now a Shadow Ball, and we're going to see Zygarde shake off the damage. In comes Xerneas, the pivot into the Solgaleo. Opponent sends out Ho-Oh, and this is looking like it's going to be a Dawnwing's Necrozma sweep in the back. The Psychic Fangs, of course, continuing to add up, getting a little bit of chip damage, but the important thing is lowering the defense. Opponent shields the Psychic Fangs, and they just gave up the final shield. Oh no. Oh no. I hope there are no Xerneas fans watching, because we're about to see a deer get absolutely crushed with a Moongeist Beam. In comes the Zygarde. Zygarde able to make it to the crunch. The opponent's defense is 2 stages debuffed, so this is going to inflict some pretty significant damage. They're going to fire off the Brave Bird, and yeah, you just saved the shield for Dawnwing's Necrozma. The moment we've been waiting for, Dawnwing's Necrozma enters the field of play. Necrozma farming up, going to commit the shield. A Moonblast would not be lethal from this range, but going to commit the shield, make it to the Moongeist Beam. Let's see this damage. On to the Xerneas. Xerneas has pretty good bulk, but it's not gonna matter. Down goes the Xerneas. Oh my goodness. And that is game over. Bit of a tricky lead in the next match. Zygarde versus Rayquaza. Rayquaza is going to be able to outpace here, fire off the Breaking Swipe, 50-50 chance at a debuff. And now Zygarde going to return fire with the crunch. Rayquaza is so much glassier than Zygarde, but Rayquaza can output a massive amount of damage, and Rayquaza is actually going to be able to force a shield here in the zeros. The Breaking Swipe will be shielded. Zygarde gets the farm down, winning switch advantage. What is the opponent going to send in here? Opponent sends in Metagross. The moveset has switched on the Zygarde, now running Outrage, so no Earthquake to go for. Opponent is still going to shield. We see the crunch debuff, aggressive pivot into Dawnwings. Dawnwings now with a choice to make. Do you shield up the Meteor Mash? The answer is yes. Dawnwings continuing to farm the switch by the opponent into Landorus, building up past the Moongeist Beam, baiting with the Dark Pulse. Do they end up respecting it? They do. And now it's going to be a -1 Moongeist Beam, but it's still going to be a Moongeist Beam. Landorus not known for its bulk. Let's see this damage right here. Dawnwings firing off the Moongeist Beam here. Will it KO? It does KO! Landorus, it gets knocked out. In comes the Metagross, able to make it to the Dark Pulse. This thing does not have great pacing, but if shields are down, oh my goodness, it is very, very scary. Positive lead in the next match, Zygarde versus Landorus. Now Landorus, if it's up even 1 Mudshot, can potentially win switch here, but at evens, Zygarde should do quite well. Zygarde is going to farm up, trying for the harder hitting Outrage. Can an Outrage connect when it's only 1 stage debuff? No, the opponent is going to commit a shield. Zygarde gets the Dragon Tail through as the opponent fires off the Sandsear Storm. The Sandsear Storm not going to do a ton of damage, but you really don't want the Solgaleo having to see this Landorus, so we will see a shield from the Zygarde. Zygarde going for the another Outrage here, putting some pressure on the shield. It's a very heavily debuffed Outrage. The opponent is going to double shield, and they have made what's probably going to be a fatal mistake. They used all their shields, and now what is going to stop them from just getting Moongeist beamed in this endgame? This could get fun. The Sandsear is going to connect. Zygarde going to fire off a heavily debuffed Crunch here. Crunch is not going to be able to pick up the KO, but the Dragon Tail after will. In comes Dragonite, aggressive pivot into the Solgaleo, baits out Kyogre, and yeah, this Dragonite is about to get a very, very rude awakening thanks to Moongeist Beam. They shielded debuffed moves from the Zygarde. And now Dawn Wings is about to cook in the back. Oh my goodness. Kyogre is going to fire off its energy. Origin Pulse picks up the KO. And now, do you just Shadow Claw down here with Dawn Wings? Gonna wait the timer. Sending in the Zygarde first. Zygarde can't make the move, but it's still gonna be Dawn Wings time. Dawn Wings gets the farm down. In comes the Dragonite. Let's see this Moongeist beam. But first, they are gonna be firing off the Dragon Claw. Dragon Claw will connect. Dawn Wings able to withstand the damage, and now going for the Moongeist beam. This is a serious nuke move. Down goes Dragonite, one hit KO. Oh my goodness. Tough lead in the next match, leading Zygarde, going up against the Dialga. The safe switch into the Solgaleo is going to be met with the Giratina Origin. Now, baiting out any potential Ghost or Dark type is very important, because Dawn Wings would get absolutely crushed, as it would be taking double super effective damage from those moves. The Shadow Ball is going to connect. Solga barely able to hang on, but not well enough. Back in comes the Zygarde. Zygarde is just going to look for an aggressive farm down, try and get as much energy as it possibly can. The Shadow Ball will connect, but that's not a concern for the Zygarde. Zygarde, oh my goodness, 1 HP left on the Giratina as they make the move, and it's just the Ominous Wind. In comes Dialga. This Zygarde not running Earthquake, but the opponent may not know that. They end up committing the shield. Zygarde continuing to farm. Opponent is going to strike first, firing off an Iron Head. Iron Head not going to be enough to KO. The Zygarde now going to fire off another Crunch bait. Does this Crunch grab the final shield from the Dialga? It does. Zygarde makes it to the move, but the Dragon Breath KOs first. And now it's all up to Necrozma to try and sweep in this endgame. Necrozma with a shield left, shielding up the Iron Head, will look to overfarm in this matchup and pick up the KO with the Dark Pulse. What do they have in the back? There's quite a bit of energy stored on Dawn Wings. It's Mewtwo. Oh no, Mewtwo. Oh no. Oh no, it's all over for the Mewtwo. The Moongeist beam is reached. Every Mewtwo in the game just felt that damage. Oh my goodness. Mewtwo gets one shot, and we move straight away into the next match. Zygarde versus Palkia. Palkia doesn't even build up to the potential Spatial Rend, which is a very easy no-shield for the Zygarde. Zygarde going to fire off the Crunch. Crunch is going to be no-shielded by the Palkia. Palkia taking quite a bit of damage here. Palkia is going to make the last second charge attack. We do see the shield from the Zygarde, but Palkia is only going to end up going for that Aqua Tail. In comes the Landorus. Landorus now going to be hit with a hard-hitting Outrage. Do they decide to commit the shield here? They do. So Landorus is now going to potentially get a massive amount of farm, as this is definitely Sandshrew Storm range. So Zygarde is going to get knocked out. You're forced to send in Necrozma. The good news is you've already gotten damage on the Landorus, so it's probably pretty close to farm plus Dark Pulse range. But there is so much energy on this Landorus, and unless you have something like a Kyogre, this amount of Landorus energy is very scary. We're going to see the Dark Pulse reached by Dawn Wings. Dawn Wings looking to apply some pressure to the Landorus, but the Landorus knows it's in an advantageous position, committing the final shield, firing off another charge attack. The Sandshrew Storm does get shielded. Dawn Wings makes it to the Dark Pulse, but loses charge attack priority. This will come very close to knocking out. The Sandshrew Storm barely does not knock out. Able to hang on with a fraction of HP is Dawn Wings Necrozma. The Dark Pulse picks up the KO, and now it's in the Zero Shield. We have Metagross versus Solgaleo. And this right here will be the best demonstration of power creep in the Master League. Identical typings, but Metagross has super effective Earthquake. But look at this. It does not matter. Earthquake, not an issue for Solgaleo. Solgaleo able to withstand that damage. Now going to fire off the Psychic Fangs. Psychic Fangs plus one more Fire Spin picks up the knockout. And all that's left is 1 HP on the Landorus. That gets farmed down as well. And that's a good game. Familiar lead in the next match. Zygarde versus Mewtwo. Opponent safe switches into Dialga. Going to stay in here, farm up some energy, and then send in the Solgaleo. Solgaleo is going to be a wall to energy from the Dialga. This is the OG Dialga, so they don't have access to Roar of Time. It's just going to be Iron Head or Draco Meteor. Overfarming, firing off the Psychic Fangs. Psychic Fangs will be able to apply those debuffs, which are so nice for Solgaleo. Another charge attack reached by the Dialga. Another no shield by the Solgaleo. It is the Draco Meteor, but it does not KO. Solgaleo able to make one final charge attack. Psychic Fangs into the debuff. Dialga is going to be able to pick up the KO and leave almost no farm for whatever the opponent decides to send in here. They send in Kyogre. Kyogre can do very well neutrally into this entire team. In comes the Zygarde, and Zygarde is just going to fire off the Crunch. The Crunch no shielded by the opponent. Zygarde continuing to farm. Looks like we're back on Earthquake, which means I definitely have these battles out of order, but that is okay. They're going to fire out the Surf. Surf not going to do a whole lot to the Zygarde. Zygarde going for another Crunch. Ideally, you would love if they shielded here, and they do shield, and there's a defense drop as well. Oh no. Do you just save 2 shields for Dawn Wings at this point? Oh, we're going to see a shield going for the Crunch, trying to get the final shield back. Because if they give up the final shield, then it's Moongeist time. Oh no, they gave up the final shield. Okay, this is very over. In comes Necrozma Dawn Wings. And Dawn Wings, I mean, you just always no shield here in case they have Shadow Ball on the Mewtwo, because now the Mewtwo has no way to win this game. Just gonna go for the Dark Pulse here. I would have loved to see the Bad Manners Moongeist Beam, but Dark Pulse plus the Shadow Claws are still gonna be enough to KO, so it is still gonna be a win. Part of me was hoping that we'd get to see the Bad Manners Moongeist Beam, but hey, a win's a win. Oh look, we have same leads in the next game here. Zygarde versus Mewtwo. This Mewtwo is not switching out though. We've seen quite a few Mewtwo. We have not seen an Ice Beam one yet. Will this be the Ice Beam? Calling it. It's the Ice Beam. There it is. Right on cue. Over farming. Going for the Crunch. And we're back on Outrage. Crunch into the Mewtwo. Will be shielded. Mewtwo over farming quite a bit. And this should be a range where Side Strike will knock out. Zygarde going to commit the shield. Again, would love to try and get shields down. Because shields down is where Dawn Wings is going to do the best. Crunch is not going to be shielded. Opponent is going to be able to win the one shield here as Mewtwo barely hangs on. Side Strike picks up the KO. In comes Solgaleo. Solgaleo is going to get the farm down. It's Kyogre in the back, and this is not ideal for the Solgaleo whatsoever. Psychic Fang's not going to output a lot of damage. Kyogre just going to fire off the Surf. Surf, pretty easy no shield for the Solgaleo, but the Solgaleo is rapidly losing HP over time. These waterfalls so consistent, firing off yet another Psychic Fangs, putting pressure onto Kyogre. Kyogre still knows they can no shield. Kyogre will have to throw, or we will see another Psychic Fangs reached, and they try for the farm down. The Psychic Fangs is reached, that picks up the KO. It's Dialga in the back, and this is an important meta matchup, so we can see what happens here. We're going to be able to get to see Dawn Wings versus Dialga. Dawn Wings just going straight for the Dark Pulse. That is going to be no shielded by the Dialga, understanding it's not enough for the Moongeist Beam. Letting it through. Iron Head will connect. Can Dawn Wings make it to another Dark Pulse here? It's going to be really close, and it barely does with a fraction of HP remaining. Dark Pulse is going to grab the shield from the Dialga, and now it's all up to Solgaleo. No HP left on Solga, but able to make it to a Psychic Fangs. Will this be enough to KO? Dialga is very low. Psychic Fangs picks up the knockout. I did not think that was going to be a win, but the game is going to end in victory. In the next match, we actually had a simultaneous save switch out of a Zygarde into Melmetal lead. Understanding that the opponent would not be staying in that matchup for any amount of time, save switch into Solgaleo, and now Solgaleo is not behind on energy versus the Lugia. Lugia is going to tank the Iron Head. Lugia, not really ever a recent debate, just going to fire off the Aeroblast. We do not see the boost, and we're going to see another Iron Head fired off by Solgaleo. This Iron Head will not be lethal, but it will get that Lugia into the red health. Lugia continuing to farm. Solgaleo just going to go for the Psychic Fangs here. Psychic Fangs would not KO. Opponent is going to let that through, and the opponent is actually going to be able to force a shield here. Solgaleo choosing to let this go. It does not KO. Oh my goodness, and the Solga lives on 1 HP. I thought for sure that would be enough to knock out, but not today. The Solgaleo able to withstand the damage. Aggressive switch into Necrozma as the opponent is going to send in Dialga. Nice catch by the opponent as they're going to catch the Dark Pulse onto the Melmetal. Melmetal going to be able to hit for neutral damage here with its Rock Slides. And Necrozma Dawn Wings now with a choice to make, committing the shield on the Rock Slide. This is not quite a range where Dark Pulse would KO, so going to full send Moongeist Beam. Moongeist Beam does get shielded up by the Melmetal. After the Shadow Claws, this is probably a range where Dark Pulse could KO. We're going to see now a double shield, but this potentially sets up the Dialga to Draco Meteor in the endgame, which could get a little bit uncomfortable. And now the Rock Slide will connect. That does some pretty significant damage. Going to fire off the Dark Pulse. Dark Pulse is going to be able to pick up the knockout. In comes Dialga. Dialga farming up. And we're going to see Necrozma making it to the Moongeist Beam. Opponent has to shield here. They call the bait. It KOs a Dialga from close to full health. And that's just game over. Hopping into the final match, Zygarde versus Palkia. Palkia only going to fire off the Aqua Tail here, but we will see the shield from the Zygarde, as even an Aqua Tail landing plus the Dragon Breaths will add up over time. We're going to see a shield by the Palkia. Palkia continuing to farm up energy. This is only going to be another Aqua Tail, choosing to let this one through. Aqua Tail will do a little bit of damage. Opponent going to send in Dialga. We're now back on Earthquake and able to get to the Earthquake as well. Let's see. Decision time for the opponent. Are they going to shield? They are. And now the energy advantage they have is neutralized as in comes Solgaleo, a complete wall to their energy. Dialga fires off the Iron Head. Solgaleo does not care. And again, we have another situation where the opponent gave up both their shields early in the match. And now there's nothing stopping Dawnwings from just Moongeist beaming everything in sight. Dialga is going to be firing off another charge attack. Solgaleo lets it through. The Iron Head is going to connect. And we are going to see Solgaleo firing off another Psychic Fangs. Psychic Fangs is going to connect. Solgaleo, with the debuff defense on Dialga, is going to be able to get that farm down. In comes Palkia, aggressive switch into Dawnwings. Dawnwings going to no-shield the Aqua Tail from the Palkia. What do they have in the back? Whatever it is, it's getting hit with a Moongeist beam. Enter Landorus. Does this actually one-shot from full? Let's see this. Go for the Moongeist beam into the Landorus. Oh, the Landorus lives on 1 HP, but that damage is mental. Oh my goodness. And that is going to be game over. All in all, these were some very fun battles, and many thanks to the submitter for sending them in. I mentioned at the start, I really didn't want to mispronounce their name, and there were a couple ways that I was like, this could be pronounced, so I didn't want to risk it. And then in their shoutcast, just horrifically just butcher the pronunciation of their name. But thank you for sending in the footage so we can take a look at what this Mon looks like. Now let's talk about Dawnwings Necrozma and its Master League viability. I do think this is going to be a meta Pokemon. It is going to have a global release in July during the Global Go Fest, where you should be able to raid the normal Necrozma and then fuse it, in this case with Lunala, to get access to Dawnwings and then get the new move of Moongeist Beam. Dawnwings definitely looks like it's going to be a strong meta threat. I will say, I do think it's going to be slightly less of an impact than Palkia Origin had, because Palkia, I really feel like it completely transformed basically every team that you see in the Master League. I do think Dawnwings is going to be very popular, but I don't think it's going to quite have the same impact as Palkia Origin. So a very strong Master League Pokemon, top 10 pretty easily, but I don't think it's quite in that like top 2, top 1 slot like Palkia Origin is. But overall, if you have the ability to get one during the Global Go Fest or in one of the in-person Go Fests that are happening over the next couple months, definitely worth it. This thing is an absolute beast. Ideally, you're going to try and want to play it out similar to how this battler did, which is try and force your opponents to give up early shields, because the pacing is not the greatest for Dawnwings. Like 7 to a Dark Pulse, 9 to the Moongeist Beam to get into the first one, so you can get outpaced by quite a lot of stuff. But in shields down situations, Dawnwings can often tank a hit, make the Moongeist Beam, and as we saw, there were so many neutral matchups where Moongeist Beam just devastated the opposition. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you're enjoying the content, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And a special thank you as always to our members here on YouTube. The support guys provide is sincerely appreciated. So thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.